I'll never forget the sound my tires made rolling up that gravel road. The kind of crunch that tells you you're finally home, even if home's been a memory more than a reality for a while. Truth is, I'd been out chasing paychecks for 6 months, hauling steel and sweat for some big out-of-state build, telling myself I'd come back once things settled. Well, things never settle. You just hit a point where the ache to see your own land again gets louder than any excuse. Grandpa left me these acres. He carved this road out of rock and pine with his own 2 hands. It's supposed to be my sanctuary, my family's anchor. But the world had other plans for me. Or maybe just one woman with a taste for other people's property. I turned that last bend expecting the A-frame cabin I grew up in, expecting the porch swing, maybe a deer grazing in the brush. Instead, I got a sucker punch of new construction and the stench of diesel and cut wood, so strong it made my eyes water. There must have been 20 cabins jammed along the ridge, Tyvek flapping in the wind, muddy backhoes parked wherever they pleased. And a sign, so smug it made my stomach lurch, Sampson Ridge Estates, an exclusive mountain community. You ever get that sense, right down in your bones, that something's wrong before your brain even catches up? That was me, sitting in my old Ford, hands locked on the wheel. And then I see him, a guy in a Halloween cop uniform, puffing his chest like he's the law around here. Private property, sir, you'll have to turn around. Cute. I told him, flat as a plank, this is my private property. He just smirked and pointed back at the cabins. Not according to my boss. This is Sampson Ridge now. And that's when I realized just how bad it was. The decks were slapped together, unsafe, no bracing. Propane tanks crammed right up against the walls. He had a cheap badge, Sampson Security, stitched in gold. Your boss is Karen Sampson? I asked. He nodded, chest out, like he was proud of it. I almost laughed. Karen's the HOA president down in the valley, queen of the power trip. Now she'd built herself a kingdom on land that, last I checked, still had my name on the deed. I know this county. I know the real sheriff, and I sure as hell know when someone's bluffing. So I reached for my phone, told the guy, his badge read Barry, by the way, that Sheriff Reed would be real interested to hear about a fake cop blocking private roads. You could see him shrinking by the second, like his uniform was deflating. 3 rings later, Reed answered, gravelly as ever. It's Jack. Got a situation up at the old bridge. 10 minutes later, that blue and white cruiser comes snaking up the road, lights spinning. Sheriff Reed, he's the mountain personified, lean, sunburned, built from the same granite as my grandpa. Doesn't say much. Doesn't have to. He looks at me, looks at Barry, looks at the sign and the whole mess of cabins. Been a while, Jack. Finished your job out of state. Yeah. Came for the peace and quiet. Got this instead. Barry tried to hide behind a pine, hands shaking. Reed just looked at him, voice cold. Son, let me see your ID. You got a security license for this county? No. Take off the badge. That's when the queen herself rolled in, hair perfect, boots spotless, face all smile, and no warmth. Karen Sampson. She handed Reed a folded piece of paper, a deed, supposedly, and said it was all legal, her land now, so I should just move my vehicle. I opened it up, and my grandpa's name was scribbled at the bottom, but the signature was all wrong. Neat, careful, not the shaky scrawl he left after decades running a chainsaw. And the buyer was a shell company. Sale dated 2 days after his funeral. You believe that? Karen had her story ready. People get practical, Jack. He got a fair price. My hands started to shake. He was dead, Karen. 2 days after we buried him. And you're telling me he sold you the ridge? She didn't blink. Reed kept his face stone flat. Told me it was a civil matter now. I'd have to get a lawyer. Karen smirked like she'd already won. But Reed cuffed Barry for impersonating an officer and drove off, leaving me with the woman who'd gutted my legacy for profit. Let me back up a sec. My family's not rich. We're stubborn. I called my Uncle Dave, old-school mechanic, the kind who can smell a scam a mile off. He said, you know what to do, kid. Sharks get hungry. Steer him yourself. So I found the meanest bulldog lawyer in 3 counties, Frank Delgado. The man lived in a cluttered office above a bakery, wore the same tweed jacket every day, but he listened. When I told him about the deed, he didn't even blink. Let's see the original. Frank marched me down to the recorder's office. May at the desk found the deed file, tapped at her keyboard, frowned. Funny. Someone else pulled this deed last week, Karen Sampson. And the notary stamp? Clarence Finney. Retired 2 years ago. His logbook was stolen out of his car the week he left. Frank's eyes got sharp. We pulled the police report, ran the notary stamp against other filings, and wouldn't you know it, every recent transfer was to shell corporations tied to Karen's HOA. It was a pattern, a criminal enterprise hidden under the color of law. Frank grinned like a wolf. We've got her, Jack. This is felony-grade stupid. But I knew Karen's kind. She'd cheat on safety just like she cheated on paperwork. The next day, I watched those cabins with binoculars. Gas lines lying exposed, no bracing on the decks, no sign of a real septic system. My land, poisoned and rigged to blow. I called Frank. He called the DA. That's when the real fireworks started. The DA, Patel, organized a full sweep. Fire marshal, building inspector, health department, the works. We rolled in like a cavalry charge, and Karen's kingdom fell apart in hours. Red tags on every door. Unsafe. Uninhabitable. Families booted out. Karen tried to bluster, called it harassment, but the paperwork was airtight. That afternoon, as the snow started, I watched her little empire go dark. She glared at me from her porch and screamed, "You'll regret this, Mercer. I'll bury you." Yeah, that happened. But a blizzard was moving in, and I knew there were people still up there. I heard the call on the scanner. Family trapped, baby sick, gas leak in cabin 7. I drove up through whiteout, got them out, shut down the leaking main tank with frozen hands and a pipe wrench, nearly blew the place sky high. Karen saw me save those folks. She wasn't grateful. She looked at me like I'd robbed her. In her mind, maybe I had. Next morning, with the mountain sealed off by snow, Karen came to me. Designer boots, no makeup, face drawn. She tried to buy me off. $500,000, cash, quit claim the land, and walk away. She called the forged deed a business expense. I had her on tape. When I played her own words back, the look on her face. Yeah, that's one I'll keep for a long time. The predator realizing she's the prey. That recording? It blew the case wide open. DA Patel and Frank ran with it. Unraveled every fraudulent transfer, tracked the money through a nest of shell companies, turned up cash bribes to a surveyor who'd falsified the property lines, caught a trail of other stolen deeds, all notarized with Clarence Finney's missing stamp. By the time we walked into court, it wasn't just about my ridge anymore. It was about every family Karen had fleeced. The courtroom was tight, old wood and sharp eyes. Karen sat at the defendant's table, lawyer whispering frantic advice. Judge Vance barely needed 5 minutes to see what was going on. Motion granted, she said. Deed nullified. Title restored. She hit Karen with every penalty in the book. Return all profits, pay for demolition, full restitution, and then handed the floor to DA Patel. He read off the charges: forgery, bribery, reckless endangerment, racketeering. Karen didn't even fight as the bailiffs took her away. The sound of those cuffs. Yeah, that's the sound of justice. It took months to tear down the cabins, recycle the mess, let the ridge start to heal. I got my land back, but I got more than that. For other families, robbed in the same scheme, got theirs too. Karen took a plea, fraud, bribery, 5 to 7 years. Her money gone, her empire ashes. The surveyor lost his license. Barry got a fine and some community service. My Uncle Dave patted my shoulder, said Grandpa would be proud. And maybe, for the first time in a long time, I believed him. Now, when I walk that ridge at sunset, I don't think about revenge. I think about building things right. Restoring the old pines, undoing the damage, making the land whole. It'll take time. That's okay. I know how to build slow and strong. Karen Sampson tried to win with lies and shortcuts, but in the end, it was a forged signature, a hissing gas line, and a stubborn streak a mile wide that brought her down. So, yeah, that's how it went. I fought for what mattered. Didn't do it with fists, did it with facts, code books, notary logs, and the kind of friends who stick when things get ugly. Maybe that's all any of us can do. Stand our ground. Tell the truth. Refuse to back down when the easy way out is staring us in the face. Would you have walked away for $500,000? Or stood your ground, even when everyone said you were crazy to fight? I'd love to know. Comment below. Tell me what you think. Where does justice end and revenge begin? How far would you go to defend your home?